Any parent, I believe, shares the same simple, burning wish for their children to see them grow up healthy and strong, find success in their work, get married, and live a happy, fulfilling life. It's a fundamental hope, a quiet fire that burns in the heart of every mother and father. I was no different. I held that beautiful dream for my only son. But my life was never a path of roses. My name is Evelyn Reed, and at over 70 years old, I can tell you I was not one of those lucky mothers. I was the one who helped my son take his first wobbly steps. I spoon-fed him every bite of oatmeal and mashed carrots, cherishing him more than any treasure in the world. I poured my youth, my blood, sweat, and tears into raising him, loving him, and helping him grow into a man. But can you believe it? This same son, my own flesh and blood, the person in whom I had placed all my trust and hope, was the one who smashed a birthday cake right in my face. The memory of that act, even now, stabs at my heart like 1,000 tiny needles every time it comes to mind. It might be difficult to believe a story like this could be true, but it is the sad truth, a secret I have kept locked away in the deepest part of my heart, something I never wanted to speak of. The pain has lingered, a wound that has never truly healed, smoldering just beneath the surface. Every time I allow myself to think about it, my chest tightens, and invisible tears fall inside me. I had promised myself I would take this story to my grave, burying it as a private sorrow for an old mother to carry alone. But as time passes, even as the scars fade, the lessons it taught me still hold value. And so today, perhaps the time has come for me to find the courage to face it, to give voice to my heart, and to share this story with all of you. It is my hope that through the telling of a mother who has seen many highs and lows, you might feel the truest waves of emotion and perhaps find something meaningful for your own life. So, let me begin my life's story. My name is Evelyn Reed. I was born and raised in the quiet countryside of Pennsylvania, a place of rolling green hills and vast farmlands. My life, from my girlhood days to now, when strands of white have overtaken my hair, has been anything but a walk in the park. I was born into a poor farming family, where having a full belly was a luxury and the dream of going to school, of holding books and pens, seemed to exist only in the hazy daydreams of children. My earliest memories are tied to sprawling fields, the smell of damp earth and sweat, and hands that grew calloused from work long before their time. While other children my age were heading off to school, I was out in the fields with my parents, helping to till the soil, plant the seeds, and bring in the harvest under the scorching sun or in the pouring rain. The deep cracks in my heels and the thick calluses on my palms were the only diplomas my childhood ever gave me. I had to give up my dream of an education, of learning like the other children, and instead shoulder the responsibility of helping my parents make ends meet. In those years, I learned one thing for certain: to survive in this life, to stand on your own 2 feet and not be swept away by the current of time, you can only rely on your own 2 hands and an unbreakable will. The harshness of life forged me into a strong, stubborn woman, one who would not be easily broken by hardship, and so, in time, I was married. My husband's name was Daniel, a quiet and down-to-earth man. We met on the town's market day, and his honest smile, along with the warmth in his eyes, stirred something in my young heart. Daniel didn't have much money, but he possessed a kind soul and a work ethic you rarely see anymore. He was a true family man, the kind who always put his loved ones first. Our life together wasn't rich, not by a long shot. The place we called home was a small, old wooden house with a faded shingle roof, tucked away quietly on the side of a hill. Every morning, Daniel would be out in the fields at the crack of dawn, and I would stay behind to manage the house. In my spare moments, I'd take on knitting and embroidery, trying to earn a little extra money to help us get by. We worked tirelessly day and night, saving every penny we could. Our greatest hope was simply to build a small, peaceful home where we wouldn't have to worry about where our next meal was coming from. Those simple dinners, those nights we'd sit together under the full moon, talking about the future and our humble dreams, those were our happiest moments. We weathered countless storms and hardships side by side, and with every challenge we overcame, our love only grew deeper. And then, our son, Michael, was born. I remember that fateful day as if it were yesterday. His first cry echoed through our little house, and to me, it was the most beautiful symphony I had ever heard. Michael. We chose that name and filled it with all our hopes and wishes for him, praying he would have a life as bright as the morning sun and as full of possibility as the wide open sky. From the moment I held him in my arms and felt his soft warmth against me, I was overcome with a love so deep it was impossible to measure. But alongside that love, I felt the heavy weight of responsibility settle onto my shoulders. I made a silent vow to him then and there. I promised that no matter how hard life got, I would sacrifice everything, anything, to make sure he had a better future than I did. He would not know the same struggles. I would not let him be forced to give up on his dreams the way I had been. I would be the strongest shoulder for him to lean on, the steady lighthouse that would illuminate his path forward. Truly, Michael was once my greatest pride, the very sunshine that lit up my life. From the time he was a little boy, he was always so sweet and loving, a good son who wanted to make his parents proud. Michael was bright, quick on his feet, and so eager to learn. His big, dark eyes always sparkled with curiosity and a desire to explore the world around him. Whenever I saw him poring over his books by the flickering light of the oil lamp, his face lit with concentration, or watched him participate enthusiastically in after-school activities, my heart would swell with a happiness I can't put into words. I told myself over and over that all my hard work, all my sacrifices, were worth it, as long as I could see his brilliant smile and know he had a bright future ahead of him. I can still recall those days with perfect clarity. To pay for tutors and new textbooks for Michael, I had to take on any job I could find. During the day, I worked at the garment factory, where the needle on my machine flew across the fabric without rest, and the calluses on my fingers grew thicker and harder with each passing week. When I got home at night, I would take on extra knitting and embroidery jobs, sometimes staying up through the long, quiet hours until dawn just to finish an order on time. My eyes would grow blurry from the strain, and my hands would ache from holding a needle for so many hours. But I never once complained. Whenever I thought of Michael, of his innocent smile and the bright future that awaited him, all my exhaustion seemed to melt away. All I wanted was for him to get a good education and have a comfortable life, a life without the kinds of struggles I had known. My husband, Daniel, though his health was never the best, always did everything he could to help me. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He'd often look at me, his eyes full of a quiet strength, and say, "You just focus on taking care of Michael, honey. You pour all your love into that boy. I'll work as hard as my body lets me. I know our son is going to make this family proud one day." Daniel's steady love and Michael's bright, innocent smile were the fuel that kept me going, the motivation I needed to overcome any challenge that came our way. Whenever I felt worn out from the long days, or when my spirits were low, Daniel was right there to lift me up and comfort me. He would put his calloused hand over mine and tell me it would all be all right. He was the rock of our family, the unwavering pillar I leaned on, the man I loved and trusted with every fiber of my being. And then, our world was turned upside down. Daniel fell terribly ill. It came on suddenly, a shadow that crept into our lives and refused to leave. We tried everything we could, anything the doctors suggested. We used up all our meager savings. I borrowed money from our neighbors, from anyone in our small community who would lend us a hand, promising to pay them back someday, somehow. But the sickness was relentless, a cruel and unforgiving thief. When Michael was still in high school, a young man on the cusp of his own life, that terrible disease stole Daniel away from me forever. Losing my husband was a blow I thought I would never recover from. It felt as if a piece of my own soul had been torn away and buried with him. My whole world, the small, simple life we had built with our bare hands, seemed to collapse right from under my feet. The silence in our little house was deafening. But then I would look at Michael. I'd see the confusion and the loss reflected in his young eyes, and I knew I couldn't give up. I couldn't fall apart. I had to be strong for him. I had to be his rock now, the only one he had left. I had promised Daniel on his deathbed that I would take good care of our boy, that I would see him through to a better life, and I was determined to keep that promise, no matter what it cost me. The simple gold bracelet he had given me just before he passed away became my most sacred possession. Whenever I felt my resolve waver, I would touch its smooth, cool surface, and it was a constant reminder of his love, of my responsibility, and of the solemn promise I had made to him. After Daniel was gone, life for Michael and me grew even harder. To cover our daily expenses and save every penny for Michael's future education, I had to work 2, sometimes 3 jobs. There were so many nights I only got a few hours of sleep, waking up long before the sun rose to start another long, grueling day of work. But I never once felt a moment of regret. I truly believed that every single sacrifice I made, every ache in my bones, would one day be worth it. I believed that Michael would understand his mother's love for him, and that he would grow up to be a good man, a kind and thoughtful son. And then came the day I had worked and prayed for. The day Michael graduated from a prestigious university in New York. I stood in the vast auditorium and I couldn't stop the tears of joy from streaming down my face. My son stood there in his cap and gown, one face among thousands of other students. But to me, he was still that sweet little boy from all those years ago, all grown up and shining so brightly. I stood in the crowd of proud parents, stretching my neck as far as it would go, just to get a better look at him. When Michael's name was called and he walked across that stage to receive his diploma, I clapped so hard my hands hurt, and the tears just flowed freely down my cheeks. Oh, how proud I was of my boy. That was the moment I had dreamed of for years. It was the moment I knew, deep in my soul, that every tear, every sleepless night, every single one of my sacrifices had been worth it. After graduation, it wasn't long before Michael landed a great job at a well-respected international firm right there in the city. The salary he earned was more than I had ever dreamed of, enough for him to live a comfortable life and to help support me as well. Michael was such a good son. He never forgot his old mother. He always knew just how to show his love. He would often buy me little gifts, take me out to nice restaurants, or surprise me with trips to places I had only ever read about in books. On the weekends, he'd often take me for a walk in the park, or he'd join me in the kitchen and we'd cook my favorite meals together. His laughter filling the small apartment he rented for me. Those simple moments together were more precious to me than any treasure in the world. I truly thought my life would continue on like that, just peaceful, happy days spent with my wonderful, caring son. I thought that my sacrifices had finally been rewarded. I believed I could live out the rest of my days in peace and happiness, with nothing left to worry about. I had once told Michael something that I considered to be a core part of my philosophy on life. A good wife, I said to him, is someone who brings a husband closer to his own mother, not someone who pulls him away. I truly believed that. I believed in the strength of family ties, and I believed in the possibility of a loving bond between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. I had always prayed for my son to have a happy life, and I hoped that the woman he chose would be a kind daughter-in-law, one who would love and respect his family as her own. But my daughter-in-law, she was not like that at all. One day, Michael brought a young woman home and announced that she was the one he wanted to marry. Her name was Chloe. From the very first moment I met her, I felt a chill run down my spine. She struck me as cold and calculating. She went through all the right motions, of course. She gave a polite, firm handshake and offered greetings with the sweetest words. But there wasn't a trace of sincerity in her eyes or her smile. Her eyes were sharp, constantly assessing everything around her, and her smile was a stiff, practiced curve that never once reached them. It was a mask, and having seen my share of life's ups and downs, I could feel the insincerity radiating from every one of her carefully chosen, gestures, and honey-coated words. She was playing a part, and I felt in my bones that it was not a kind one. After that first meeting, I asked to speak with Michael alone. I chose my words carefully, trying to voice my concerns without sounding like a judgmental old mother. "Michael," I said softly, "I don't have a good feeling about that young woman. You should take some more time to get to know her better. I feel like she isn't being genuine with you, son." My son, Michael, just laughed, as if I had told him a silly joke. "Oh, Mom, you're so old-fashioned," he said, waving a dismissive hand. "Times are different now. Chloe is brilliant. She has a great education, a career, a position in society. You can't be so negative about everything." He wouldn't listen to a single word I said. He was completely taken in by her polished exterior and her sweet talk, refusing to even consider looking for the person underneath. My heart grew heavy in my chest. I knew he was blinded by what he thought was love, blinded by the innocent optimism of youth that sees only what it wants to see. And so, despite my warnings, Michael decided to marry Chloe. On the day of their wedding, I did my best to force a smile onto my face, to hide the deep unease that had settled in my heart. I wore a simple but elegant dress, and I stood beside the empty space where my husband, Daniel, should have been. Though he was gone, I felt him there with me, his quiet strength at my side as we watched our son take this momentous step. I watched Michael and Chloe stand at the altar, exchanging their vows, and I prayed. I prayed with every fiber of my being that my intuition was wrong, just this once. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, marriage would change Chloe, that she would soften and become a good and loving wife, a kind daughter. But that day of joy, it was also the beginning of a quiet, brewing storm. After they were married, my daughter-in-law never once woke up early. Eve. Every single morning, I continued my lifelong habit of rising before the sun to prepare breakfast for the entire family. I'd cook bacon and eggs, make toast, and set the table neatly, the smell of fresh coffee filling the small house. I would call up to Chloe to come and eat, but my calls would go unanswered. I'd call once, then twice, then a third time, but she would not come down. Sometimes, I had to wait so long for her that the food grew cold. Other times, she would finally appear just as the rest of us were finishing our meal. I tried to be understanding. I told myself she was probably busy with her demanding job, or perhaps she just wasn't used to our family's morning routine yet. When Chloe did finally join us at the table, she would begin to complain. "This coffee is so bitter, Evelyn," she'd say, not even calling me Mom, "and this bacon is far too greasy. The toast is practically burnt." She would deliver these critiques without a hint of hesitation, speaking to me as if I were a hired housekeeper, not her mother-in-law. I swallowed my pride and my hurt. I would just smile and say that I would try to do better next time. I am the elder here, I told myself. I must be patient. I must be the one to make allowances for the younger generation. She, however, made no such allowances for me. Chloe had a talent for turning the smallest molehill into a mountain. Every single night, she would whisper into my son's ear, complaining about some trivial thing that happened during the day, some minor mistake I had supposedly made. Even from my room upstairs, I could hear their hushed voices drifting up from the living room, and I knew, with a sinking feeling, that she was methodically planting seeds of discord in Michael's mind. And just as she intended, my son began to change. He started to grow irritable. Michael was no longer the loving, attentive son who listened to his mother's advice. He began to speak to me with a harsh edge in his voice, using words he had never, ever used with me before. "Mom, would you please stop nagging my wife?" He'd snap. "Times have changed. She doesn't have to live like you did back in the day. Why are you so stuck in your old ways?" His tone was cold and distant, cutting me to the core. He spoke to me as if I were a complete stranger, a heavy burden he was now forced to carry. Our family dinner table, which had once been the very heart of our home, a place of laughter and warmth, had now become a battlefield. The air was always thick with a tension you could practically feel. My husband, Daniel, was gone, of course, but in my heart, I always imagined he was still right here, sitting beside me, enduring all of this with his quiet strength. As soon as Michael and I finished our meals, we would retreat upstairs without saying a single word. We had effectively moved our entire lives to the second floor, creating a completely separate existence from the one happening downstairs. We cooked our own meals in a small kitchenette we'd set up, did our own laundry, and took great care not to interfere in any way with the lives of Michael and Chloe. We just wanted to avoid any and all conflict, to sidestep any unnecessary confrontation. But the coldness between the first floor and the second was like a wall of ice, thick and unyielding. That wall separated more than just the physical space. It divided our emotions too. The bond between a mother and her son, the simple love of a family, slowly withered away with each passing day. I felt like a stranger in the very house I had poured my entire life into building, a profound and hollow loneliness settling deep in my bones. And then, my daughter-in-law gave birth to our grandchild. When I heard the news, a wave of pure joy washed over me, the first I had felt in a very long time. I dreamed of holding my grandchild, of caring for the tiny, precious baby, of pouring all the love I had given Michael into this new little life. Eager to help, I went downstairs, hoping to share in the simple joy of being a mother, a grandmother. But Chloe stopped me, her words as smooth and sharp as glass. "Evelyn, I'll take care of the baby myself," she said. "You know how it is. Older people can sometimes pass germs to a newborn. Why don't you just rest?" Her tone was gentle, almost sweet, but her words plunged into my heart like a knife. I understood exactly what she was saying. She didn't want me to touch my grandchild. She didn't want me to have any part in the baby's life at all. I went back upstairs, my heart feeling as heavy as a stone. That night, I could hear the baby crying from downstairs. It was a thin, fragile sound, the sound a tiny infant makes. My heart ached. I wanted so desperately to go down, to pick up the baby and offer some comfort. But I couldn't. I was afraid. I was afraid that if I went downstairs, Chloe would find some new, cruel words to throw at me, another way to wound me. So I just hugged my pillow tight and let my tears soak into the bedding. I lay there, listening to my grandchild's cries, feeling my own heart tear in two. I knew things had gone too far the day my son started breaking things. Michael had completely lost control of his emotions. After a terrible argument with his wife, he shattered a stack of plates against the kitchen wall, smashed the screen of the television, and then stormed out of the house. Our tiny grandchild was wailing, but Chloe had locked herself in her room, ignoring the innocent child who needed her. The sight of it all was more than I could bear. I couldn't stand by and do nothing any longer. I went downstairs and scooped my grandchild into my arms, comforting the crying baby, rocking him gently. I looked at Chloe. She was just standing there in the doorway, her face a mask of indifference, completely devoid of any emotion. I looked at her and asked, "How can you just let your child cry like that?" "Don't you love your own baby?" she answered with a voice dripping with contempt. "You think the baby is so precious, don't you? Fine. Then you can be the one to take care of him. I don't have the time." Her words felt like another slap across my face. I looked at my daughter-in-law, then at the door my son had just stormed through, and I knew in that moment that this could not go on. I could not continue to live a life of being insulted and despised. And more importantly, I could not allow my grandchild to endure a life like this. I began to document everything, every insult, every threat, every small act of aggression. I wrote down every cruel word, every thoughtless action, every single object my son broke in his anger. I recorded it all, meticulously and carefully, as if I were writing a dark diary of my life. I didn't say a word to anyone. I remained silent. But inside my heart, a plan was taking shape. It was a plan I had been nurturing for a long time, a plan that I believed would finally bring justice and peace for my grandchild and for me. And so, the day of my grandson's first birthday party arrived. I spent the morning making a special rice pudding from scratch. It was the same recipe my own mother had taught me. The one I used to make for Michael all the time when he was a little boy. I had a gift for my grandson too. I had used up nearly all of my savings to buy him a beautiful set of wooden building blocks. I had even written a short poem that I planned to read aloud. A simple verse. I had poured all of my love and hopes for him into. But before I could even open my mouth, my daughter-in-law, Chloe, spoke up. Her voice laced with a familiar, cutting sarcasm. "I'll be handling the speeches, Evelyn. It can be hard to understand you sometimes. I've already arranged everything." I kept the smile on my face, a mask I had grown accustomed to wearing. Inside, a storm was raging, but I held onto a calm exterior. I knew what she was doing. She was systematically excluding me from everything, even from my own grandson's birthday. When I brought out the rice pudding, my grandson let out a little cry of delight, his small eyes sparkling. In that one fleeting moment, I felt a tiny bit of warmth return to my heart. And then, it happened. My son, Michael, flew into a rage over a faulty speaker. The music was cutting in and out, crackling with static. Michael, who had always been short-tempered, seemed to lose what little control he had left. He spun around to face me, his eyes blazing with fury, and he screamed, "You always ruin everything, Mom. Just stay out of it. Don't you dare mess anything else up." And then he picked up the large birthday cake and threw it directly at my face. Strawberries, whipped cream, and chocolate splattered across my hair and my dress, smearing a thick, sticky layer all over my old face. I stood there, frozen in shock. The entire house fell silent. No one said a word. The only sound was the wail of my grandson, the thin, innocent cry of a child tearing through the suffocating quiet. I just stood there. I could feel the cold of the cream on my skin and the stickiness of the chocolate matting my hair. My own tears began to fall, mixing with the cream and strawberries as they streamed down my cheeks. I looked at my son. I looked at my daughter-in-law. I looked at the relatives standing around the room, their faces frozen in disbelief. And in that moment, I knew this was the final straw. This was the limit of what I could endure. I could not take one more second of it. I turned and walked to my room, closing the door and locking it behind me. I picked up my phone. My hands were trembling, but my mind was as solid and clear as stone. I made the call. "Hello, is this the police station? My name is Evelyn Reed. I'm the owner of the house at 125 Willow Creek Lane. I would like to report an act of domestic violence. I also have documentation proving a pattern of threats, insults, and minor acts of violence over the last 2 years." I spoke clearly, distinctly, and without a single trace of hesitation. I had been preparing for this moment for a very, very long time. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. The wail of patrol car sirens echoed through our quiet suburban neighborhood. My son and daughter-in-law were taken to the station for questioning. As they put the handcuffs on him, Michael screamed at me, his voice a mixture of rage and utter disbelief. "Mom, are you serious? You're calling the cops on me? You're having me arrested? I'm your own son." I just looked at him and spoke in a low, steady voice that did not shake in the slightest. "I built this house. I built it with my own sweat, my own tears, and my own blood. But you turned it into a living hell. Now, get out. You no longer have the right to be here." In the days that followed, I had the deed to the house legally transferred into a trust for my grandson. I also added a special clause to my will. No person who has committed an act of violence against their elderly mother shall have any right to inhabit this house. I did it to protect my grandson, to ensure that he would never have to suffer the kind of torment that I had experienced. Michael was eventually released after signing a formal agreement that functioned as a restraining order, promising he would not commit any further acts of violence. Chloe came to apologize too. She said she was wrong, that she was filled with regret. But her words found no purchase in my heart. "I may have given birth to you, Michael," I told them both, "but I did not raise you so that I could be humiliated and defiled in front of my own family in my old age. You can say you're sorry, but your regret won't wipe the cream from my face from that day. Your regret will not heal the scars on my heart." I looked at my son. And I looked at my daughter-in-law, and I knew that even if I could ever bring myself to forgive them, the wound they had carved into my soul would remain there forever. My dear friends, to all of you out there listening, if you are blessed enough to still have your mother with you, I beg you, please do not wait until her silence finally ends, because only then will you truly understand. Her patience is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign that the deep, seemingly endless well of her unconditional love is slowly, day by day, running dry. Do not wait until your mother lets out her very last cry, a cry of pure despair and anguish, born from a place of unbearable pain, because by then, it will be too late for you to realize how wrong you have been. I urge you, while you still can, to cherish every single moment you have by her side. Truly listen to what she has to say, and love her with all your heart, because once that boundless love finally runs out, once that sacred limit has been crossed, no amount of regret in the world can ever turn back the clock. And with that, my story for today comes to a close. To my cherished listeners, I want to extend my deepest, most sincere gratitude for taking your precious time to hear my life story. A story filled with so many tears and so much hope. A story I have held locked away in my heart for such a very long time. Every word I have spoken, every emotion I have shared with you, has come from the deepest part of my soul, drawn from the truest and most painful experiences of my life as a mother. Through this story, I hope that you have been able to feel even a small measure of the pain and the loss that my family and I went through, and perhaps understand some of the invaluable lessons that life has taught us along the way. Life, as we all know, is a very long journey, one that is filled with countless trials and unexpected hardships. There are times when we will stumble and fall, when we might lose our way, and when we will make terrible mistakes. But the most important thing to remember is that there is always a way back home, especially when you are guided by the love and forgiveness of your family. A mother's love, a father's love, the unbreakable bond of family. It is like a lighthouse standing strong against the storm. No matter where a child may wander, no matter what terrible mistakes they might make, that light will always be there, shining brightly to guide them safely back to shore. I truly believe that each and every one of us has our own story to tell, our own private thoughts and feelings to share with the world. And it is my deepest hope that my story might serve as a gentle, loving reminder for you to cherish the people you hold dear, especially your parents. They are the ones who have dedicated their entire lives to loving and sacrificing for us without ever asking for a single thing in return. Please do not let small misunderstandings or fleeting moments of anger be things that break that sacred bond. Take the time, while you still have it, to listen to them, to understand them, and to love them. Because, as we all know, tomorrow is promised to no one. Once more, from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening until the very end. Your kindness and your attention are the greatest encouragement you could possibly give me, and they provide me with the strength to continue sharing other stories in the future. Stories about life, about relationships, and about the other lessons I have learned. I look forward to seeing you all again in my next video, where I will share a new story, new emotions, and other meaningful lessons. I wish you all a life filled with peace and happiness, and I hope you always treasure what you have. Thank you so much.